Airbrush equipment. What do you need? For starters, you obviously need an airbrush. There's a lot of options out there, and there's also a lot of knockoffs. So my advice is to do some research before you make a purchase and stick with well-known brands. Because in the end, it comes down to you, the individual artist, how the brush performs and how it feels in your hands. But regardless of which brand you choose, you want to make sure you get a double action airbrush. There are single action airbrushes available, but they don't offer the same level of control as a double action airbrush. Now, I've been airbrushing for more than 25 years now, so I've tried a lot of different airbrushes in that time period. I can't say I've tried every single airbrush out there, but I've tried a lot of them, and I always go back to my Iwatas. Again, this is all personal preference, and it's just my opinion based on my own experience, but I'm sharing with you what I've found works for me. So when the opportunity to try a different brush comes along, take it. You might find that that brush performs better in your hands than what you've been using. This is the Iwata HPCS Eclipse Gravity Feed Airbrush. It has a 0.35 millimeter needle and nozzle, and this is my workhorse. It's my go-to brush. This is the brush I started airbrushing with, and I would say I use it for easily 90% of what I do. Iwata also offers the HP BCS Eclipse. It's a siphon feed airbrush with a 0.5 millimeter needle and nozzle. Now, I prefer gravity feed over siphon feed simply because the gravity feed is easier to keep clean. I'll leave links in the description below where you can purchase the Eclipse Gravity Feed airbrush, and there's two options. You can buy the brush alone, or you can buy the brush that comes with an air hose. I personally don't like the hard plastic air hose that comes with the airbrush. I prefer a braided nylon hose for purposes that we'll cover in another video later, but I'll leave a link to the braided nylon air hose in the description as well. So how does a double action airbrush work? It's relatively simple. Push down on the trigger to start the airflow, pull back on the trigger to start the paint. Push the trigger forward to stop the paint, and release the trigger to stop the air. The number one rule in airbrushing is the air is always on. So again, turn the air on by pushing down on the trigger. I'll rock back on the trigger a little bit, and it doesn't take very much at all. And then I rock the trigger forward to stop the paint flow. And you'll notice the air has been on the entire time. That's the basics. Keeping the air on does a couple of things. If you're just starting out, it gives you one less thing to think about. If you keep the air on, you can focus your attention on learning the other fundamentals. Like, how far do I need to pull the trigger back to get the desired amount of paint? Keeping the air on also helps to reduce tip dry. What is tip dry? Airflow adds in drying paint, and there's constantly air and paint flowing through your airbrush. So at some point, some of that paint will dry on the end of your needle, which causes poor performance. So tip dry is part of airbrushing. It's going to happen. There's nothing you can do to completely prevent it. But if you have a habit of shutting off the air before you shut off the paint, it's going to happen more frequently. I get asked a lot about going to a smaller needle and nozzle set, or even a different airbrush altogether. For example, a Micron. Now, don't get me wrong, the Microns are amazing airbrushes and they have their place. I actually own two. But here's the reality based on my experience and in my opinion. Until you've spent the time and the effort required to develop good fundamentals and ultimately control of your airbrush, it's not very likely that you're going to see any improvement by changing to a smaller needle and nozzle or a much more expensive detail-oriented airbrush. On the flip side of that, once you have spent that time and effort to develop that kind of control, you'll have the ability to pull off some amazing detail with any quality airbrush. I can render some pretty fine detail with just my 0.35 millimeter Eclipse. So I hope this information has helped you out. I'll cover air compressors in another video, and then we'll get into the fundamentals, what you need to practice, and how I recommend that you practice them. So thanks for watching.